Hello everybody, what is up? Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my March monthly wrap up. I read a lot of good books this month. I'm excited to talk about them. A lot of new releases, like a ton honestly, kept me on my toes. And it's actually pretty early when I'm filming this. It's March 21st, but we leave for vacation next week, so I want to make sure I got this done in time for you guys. So if I read any books between now and the end of the month, I'll just put them in my April monthly wrap up. But I think I have like around 15 books to talk about, so I have a decent amount, and this time I'm still learning with these wrap-ups how I want to do it, but I'm gonna split it into all the physical books I read and then all the Kindle books I read, just to make it easier. And I've decided on a format for these, so I'm gonna do name, title, that's the same thing, author, whatever review it is out of 5 stars, trigger warnings, that way you can skip it if you need to, tropes, overall summary of the book, without any spoilers, my thoughts on the book, and then any quotes that I liked, because I did save a lot of quotes this month that I really enjoyed. So this is my second time filming this, because the first time the lighting was not the quality situation. But honestly, let's jump into it, and I'm going to start with all the physical books I read this month, and I did not sort these, so this was just not a good idea. But let's jump into it. Okay, first one, Hook, Line, Sinker by Tessa Bailey. I gave this 4.5 stars. No trigger warnings that I can think of, and then tropes are friends to lovers and forced proximity. This is the second book in the Bellinger Sisters series, the first one being It Happened One Summer, obviously. This one follows Fox and Hannah, and it just says, in the follow-up to It Happened One Summer, Tessa Bailey delivers a deliciously fun rom-com about a former player who accidentally falls for his best friend while trying to help her land a different man. I don't want to give any more away, like I think the back is good enough. There's so much more than It Happened One Summer, and I think that's just because, to be quite honest, Piper annoyed the shit out of me. I don't know what it was about her character, but she annoyed me. I also never watched Schitt's Creek, so I didn't like get that whole reference situation. So I kind of went into this with like not crazy high hopes, but I loved it. Hannah gives me very much like her sister's hype girl, supporting character vibes, but then she finally shines through and becomes her own person. Hannah just like encourages Fox to grow as a person, which is just so refreshing to see as a female like main character in a rom-com book. She also writes a lot about Fox overcoming imposter syndrome, and it's just really refreshing to see her talk about societal pressures that men face. I really appreciated that. To be honest, I went into this with no expectations, absolutely loved it, devoured it. The epilogue tore my heartstrings out, amazing. And the quote that really stuck with me from this book was, she felt like the sunrise coming up over the water after a bad storm. So absolutely loved it. If you're like me and you didn't love It Happened One Summer, please give Hook, Line, Sinker a chance. It's really good. And you loved It Happened One Summer, I'm sure you will love this as well. Next was a book I picked up on a whim at the grocery store, I think back in January or February. I was really trying to get through my physical TBR this month, and it is The Hunting Wives by May Cobb. I gave this 4 stars. I absolutely loved this. I devoured this in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. It was just like one of those easy to read, good thrillers. You know what I mean? No trigger warnings. Tropes, I mean, it's a thriller, so it doesn't really have any, but small town, lake house, mom, murder vibes. Gives me Big Little Lies kind of feel. This is about a girl named Sophie. Her and her husband just moved to Texas, and then she meets Margot Banks, who is like a socialite, rich mom. They're in a group called The Hunting Wives, obviously, and every Friday night they like drink a lot of wine and they shoot guns at Margot's house. She has like a lake house. But then one day a body of a teenage girl is found on Margot's property, and it's kind of just like a whodunit situation. Absolutely cannot put this down. It does have a little spice in it. It's a little naughty. Big Little Lies meets Desperate Housewives. Like, I'm sure everyone would love this book, to be honest. Also, if you see me looking down, it's because I make notes about all the books I read, so I'm just making sure I don't forget anything. But yeah, underrated. No one talks about this. So good. Highly recommend. Okay, next is the book y'all all wanted me to read, and I did it, and it was mediocre. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. The series everyone's talking about. I gave it 3.5 stars, only because I know the books get better. Let me give you a heads up that this is a very slow book. And if you don't know anything about this, it's basically, this follows Feyre, and she is basically taken prisoner by the High Fey Lord Tamlin. And you know, it's like a captive situation. Basically, I'm going to tell everyone who's wanting to get into this to just lower your expectations, and not in a bad way, but you think it's going to be like a super fast-paced, intricate, spicy fantasy, and it's not. It's really got a lot of world building in it. Really good if you're just getting into fantasy. I kind of understand why everyone recommends you read this if you're just getting into fantasy. Very easy to understand. world building that's not like too complex that you get lost. Has a Beauty and the Beast retelling element situation, which I enjoyed as a Disney fan. Great setup for future books, but the first 70% of the book is very slow. I will give you guys that heads up. But nonetheless, I did enjoy it. I did buy the rest of the books. I only gave it 3.5 stars because I know the other books get better. The quote that stuck out to me was, "Pity those who don't feel anything at all and don't feel bad for one moment about doing what brings you joy." So I'm excited to read the next book, although it is like a lot heftier than this one, but I am glad I started the series. All right, next was probably my biggest disappointment, maybe of the year, to be honest. And this is the great thing about books, is that my opinion is not going to be your opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm just a very honest and blunt person when it comes to books. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Kind of sad because The Guest List is probably one of my favorite books ever. I gave this 3 stars. It's probably a 2.5, honestly, that I rounded up to be nice. No trigger warnings, no tropes. It's a thriller. And basically the back just says, "Meet the residents of number 12, a beautiful old apartment building in the city of light, aka Paris. The socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, everyone knows something they're not telling." This book follows Jess, who needs a fresh start, so she goes to stay with her half-brother Ben in Paris. When she gets to his apartment, she finds out he's missing, and she's just kind of trying to figure out who done it. It missed the mark for me. Multiple POV, which I don't usually love. Sherry Lapina is like the only exception that I really enjoy it. Nothing happens for like the first 3/4 of the book. It's insanely slow. And then the ending is so rushed. So like the first 3/4 of the book, nothing happens. Then the last quarter, it's so rushed that you're just kind of like mind fucked, but not in a good way. The timeline is really jumpy. So I had to reread a lot, which I just don't enjoy in a book. I want it to be straightforward, whether it's past or present or future. I could not tell half the time if this was past or present. Didn't flow, wasn't super clear. Was pretty disappointed with this one, but I'm sure there are people out there who are gonna love this. It did not hit the spot for me. All right, you guys, it was such a good month for thrillers. Next one I read was Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier. 5-star read, could not put this down. Finished it once again, like started it on a Friday morning, finished it on Friday morning. Oh my God, this book was so good. No one talks about it. Trigger warning to child abduction, no tropes. This is basically about Marin and Derek, you know, perfect life. She owns a hair salon, he runs a company, you know, yada, yada, yada. They're rich. One day their son Sebastian is taken, and then it fast forwards to a year later with like, you know, the FBI haven't figured out where he is. They found no results. Then she hires a PI to kind of pick up where the police left off, and then she realizes her husband is having an affair with a younger woman. And it basically just says, this discovery sparks Marin back to life. She's lost her son. She's not about to lose her husband too. Derek's mistress, Kenzie Lee, is an enemy with a face, which means this is a problem Marin can fix permanently. I don't think I've ever read a book this fast in my life. Like, I literally could not put this book down. One thing I will note is I was absolutely captivated by the first chapter, which does not happen a lot for me. And to be honest, I gotta like a book by like the first few pages or else I'm just gonna put it down. Everything was 5 stars about this book. Writing, pace of the book, story building, twists and turns, even the like few things that I did kind of foresee were still so shocking and intricate to me. Even though like I kind of guessed them, I was still like, wait, what? This actually happened? Loved Marin's character. She's so complex, so relatable. It was absolutely amazing. It's written from the POV of Marin and then the mistress Kenzie, which I don't usually love, and I absolutely loved it. It was so well done. So please go pick this up. So good. A new release this month as well, Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma, which is book 1 in the new series, If Shakespeare Was an Auntie. Trigger warnings to grief, medical racism, and then tropes are enemies to lovers, and then fake dating / arranged marriage. I'm just looking back to see what I rated this one. I gave this a 4-star. Originally, about halfway through, I thought it'd be 5, but it just wasn't for me. This is a remaking of Taming of the Shrew. I can't even explain, like the back of this book is so complicated to me. I almost didn't read it because I did not understand. Basically, it's about this girl named Karina. Makes a deal with her father that she has to get married or engaged within 4 months to get their childhood home. And she meets this guy, Dr. Prem Verma, who's a doctor. He has like a show, kind of like Dr. Oz situation, like, you know what I mean? And they meet and then they get into a fight, which like goes viral. Someone records it. And basically, Karina's aunties come up to him with a solution, which is to make Karina convinced that he's her soulmate so he gets funding for his clinic. It's like kind of a complicated plot. I did not explain that well, but yeah, that's basically what it's about. Karina is the definition of a badass woman. Like, I did enjoy parts of this book. The spicy scenes were pretty spicy for a rom-com, I will say. Reminded me a lot of The Trouble with Hating You. So if you guys read that for my recommendation or you just read it, very comparable. So you would probably like this book as well. I definitely think this will be a top romance book of 2022, no doubt. And I think the reason I gave it a 4-star is just like a personal reason, not necessarily because the book isn't good. Like, I definitely can see how this is a 5-star book for people. I really just got tired of the guy in this, Dr. Prem Verma. Like, his I don't believe in love concept was just so annoying. I was so over it so quick. Like, his character just honestly bothered me. I'm assuming since it's a series, we might see her friends because it did go into detail about her 2 best friends. So kind of curious where this goes. I love that this was a book about a woman who knew what she wanted and like wouldn't lower her standards for anyone. But yeah, I can see how it's a 5-star read. For me, it was a 4-star only because the main dude just like really annoyed me. You know what I mean? But cute read. It will be a top book of this year for sure. And anyways, the quote that I liked was, "Sometimes I think that we as firstborn in the US feel so much pressure to excel because our parents don't know if their intercontinental move was successful until we are successful. We are the reward to their sacrifice," which I just thought was really deep, really made me think a lot about those who are like first-generation immigrants. Another new release, I went into this with very high expectations because The Wife Between Us is one of my favorite books. And it delivered. 5-star, new favorite read from her. Really my new favorite thriller overall, to be honest. Greer and Sarah just like absolutely killed this book. No trigger warnings that I can think of and no tropes. It's about a wealthy Washington suburban couple, Matthew and Marissa. And Marissa cheats, and so they hire this therapist who just like lost her license, so she can't really be called a therapist. Her name is Avery. And basically, it just says, when Marissa and Matthew slide through Avery's door and Marissa reveals her infidelity, all 3 are set on a collision course because the biggest secrets in the room are still hidden and it's no longer simply a marriage in danger. This book, once again, could not put it down. Like, I was really on a thriller roll this month. Like, I could not put this book down. I literally got into bed at like 7 p.m. and like would not stop until I finished this book. I had no idea who I could trust, who was manipulating who. I have to say that the reason I love this so much is because Greer and Sarah really know how to write a thriller with like everyday details, and I think that's what a lot of thrillers are missing. They do a really great job about writing about everyday life, little details, day to day, that kind of stuff, which I really enjoy in a thriller, and I think that's what makes it relatable. Pacing is there, the writing is there, the characters are there. This was the perfect combination of POV I found. Sometimes I find dual POV kind of uneven, and this had me obsessed with both characters from Marissa and Avery's point of view, so the wife and then also the therapist. I don't want to give any of this away, but it was like the best kind of thriller, like just a total guessing game. I had no idea who did it until like the very literal last page. 10 on 10 recommend. All right. Okay, finally read Before the Crown by Flora Harding. I actually have this on my Kindle as well as paperback. By the way, through the Kindle book, and when I know I really love a book and like I'm gonna really enjoy it, I try and get it in paperback if I can. And can we just talk about how beautiful this book is? Absolutely gorgeous. I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it so much. And if you are a fan of The Crown, you will absolutely love this, or anything historical romance. Read to the back, it just says, "Before the Crown, there was a love story. Step through the palace gates and discover a captivating historical novel of royal secrets and forbidden love, exploring the tempestuous courtship between Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip in the wake of World War II." I personally have an extra love for historical romance now that I've seen The Crown, because I'm a very visual person. I can like visualize the characters. Like, I literally visualized the young Elizabeth and Philip from The Crown, and it just made the book that much better. Like, it felt like almost like a prequel to The Crown. It just follows Elizabeth and Philip in their teenage years leading up to the wedding, which is what you don't see in The Crown. The book is really easy to understand, which I really like, because sometimes I can find historical fiction really hard to read with like the verbiage from back in the day. It just follows how they meet, how they fall in love, and the struggle to get their marriage approved. Absolutely loved it, and I actually am a bit of the way through The People's Princess, and I really, really enjoy it so far. This one's about Princess Diana. So good. And then the 2 that I did not finish, I wanted to talk about super quick, which is The Roommate and The Flat Share. This one, I went into it with really high hopes. I could not get more than a quarter of the way through. Like, I just couldn't get into it. And then The Flat Share, just a lot of like gaslighting and emotional abuse, so I just decided to stop it. yeah, not like a super believable plot. Wasn't really vibing with it, so I wanted to share those as well. On to the Kindle books I read this month, because I read a decent amount. First is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. 5-star read. This was my first book of the month and it was so good. Trigger warnings to rape, kidnapping, suicide, and murder. And the tropes are forbidden love and enemies to lovers. Also available on Kindle Unlimited. Cora, and she's at her sister's birthday party, and her sister's fiance, his name is Dean. Cora and Dean are like arch nemesis, absolutely enemies. They both get kidnapped, and basically I'll read you kind of like the bottom of the back of the book. After 15 years of teasing and insults, the ultimate joke seems to be on them. The two people who always thought they'd end up killing each other must now work together if they want to survive. Cora and Dean have no idea their abductor has a plan in store for them. A plan that will alter the course of their relationship, blur the line between love and hate, and shackle them together with far more than just chains. I was going into this with like not very high expectations because it was just dark, obviously like kidnapping and stuff. But I think that the author touched on a really dark subject and made it really beautiful, if that makes any sense. It's just so well written. You could like really feel the emotions that the characters were going through. It is very descriptive. So even if you think like the trigger warnings might like very lightly trigger you, I would not read. It is very detailed and vulgar. And not a lot of books pull on my heartstrings, but this one did. And it was a really beautiful book. It actually made me tear up, and I've never teared up in a book. That stuck out for me from this book was love doesn't exist without sacrifice. Sometimes those sacrifices are waking up 10 minutes early to make your partner coffee. Sometimes it's taking on a second job to support your family. Sometimes it's staying up all night so your significant other can sleep. Every love story is worth writing, no matter how messy it might be. So sweet. So good. Okay, next is Always Been You by QB Tyler. I gave this 3 stars. I believe this was a new release this month, and it's on Kindle Unlimited as well. Warnings, none that I can think of, and tropes are age gap, daddy kink, taboo, and forbidden romance. This is basically about Gabby, or Gabrielle I think is her name, and she's adopted when she's 2 into this family, and James is her like adopted brother. He's 13, so there's a bit of an age gap between them. And then basically when she turns 18, he starts viewing her differently. She's been in love with him her whole life. This was originally like a novella. QB Tyler wrote a novella about their story, and then it got so much good feedback that she ended up making a standalone novel about it. It's very steamy, very forbidden. And QB Tyler knows how to really build up like the angst and the passion and the chemistry and the steam. Like, to be honest, she's an amazing author. It's nothing against the book. It's just I didn't like the step brother like kink situation. Like, it wasn't for me. Yeah, quick, hot, steamy read if you need something. It was good. Like, it was very like steamy, but I just didn't love it as much as Love Unexpected, which is her previous book. Next is The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. I gave this 4.5 stars. Such an amazing read. Warning to child and animal abuse, and was on Kindle Unlimited. This is about Christopher and Hannah, who are like a married healthcare couple. They don't have a kid. They've been having a hard time trying, and then basically this girl named Janie, who's like an abandoned 6-year-old, neglected, comes to the hospital through the emergency room where Christopher works, and he forms a connection with her instantly, and basically he convinces Hannah that they should adopt her. It's very similar to Orphan, that movie that came out like 10 years ago, if you guys have seen that. Very similar, but like also different. It was really good. It just says, Hannah knows that Janie is manipulating Christopher and isolating him from her, despite Hannah's attempts to bring them all together. But as Janie's behavior threatens to tear Christopher and Hannah apart, the truth behind Janie's past may be enough to push them over the edge. As a psychology major, there were some things that were off that like I'll let slide. Like, for example, he's a doctor and he like just didn't notice some of like the emotional abuse and stuff going on. Like, he was very clueless. It will put a grip on you and you will not be able to put it down. I will tell you that. Is the story predictable? Absolutely. But the why, like, kind of is why I couldn't put it down. Like, it was just so well written. The author is a trauma psychologist, so it's like very accurate. I would have liked a legit ending. Like, the ending kind of threw me off, which is why I gave it 4.5 stars instead of 5, but still a really good read. And like a bit of a different plot than the normal like suburban psychological thriller. Next is A Lie for a Lie by Helena Hunting, which I was on a Helena Hunting kick this whole month. This is book 1 in her all-star series. I gave this 4 stars. No trigger warning. Tropes are a second chance in sports romance. This is about a guy named Rook. He's a professional hockey player, and he goes to Alaska over the summers to like fly fish. Meets Lainey, and then they end up spending the summer together and then go their separate ways, and like there's like a miscommunication on like cell phone numbers or something, so they don't get a hold of each other. And then you like fast forward a year and then they reconnect, and then it's like that story. The one thing I will say is you think it's gonna be mainly like them falling in love, and it's mostly the after part, so it's not very Alaska-y if that's what you're hoping for. This was really fun and unique. I feel like every romance book lately has just like been the same plot, so this was kind of fun and unique. I really liked it. Good start to a romance sports series. I'll definitely keep reading it. Character development, chef's kiss in this. It's really great. I love a book that they're together and they make it work, no drama, and this was definitely that, so I really appreciated that. And it was just like nice to see a mature couple dealing with curveballs together as a committed couple should, and not getting into conflict and breaking up. So really enjoyed it. It was really sweet. What I liked was every part of you is mine, just like every part of me is yours. Super sweet, good book. Happy ending. Yeah. Next was Love on the Lake by Helena Hunting, which is number 2 in her Lakeside series. This was a 4-star read for me. Loved it. No trigger warnings. Tropes are small town beach vibes, friends / enemies to lovers, and then grumpy sunshine. Let me tell you, Helena knows how to write that sexual tension and slow burn. Like, you can feel the heat from the beginning of this book. This was a new release and I absolutely just like devoured it. It was so cute. If you like need something, like I obviously read a lot of deep books this month, and this was just like a cute, fun, lighthearted romance. Also on Kindle Unlimited, I think all of her books are. Basically, this is about a girl named Tegan. The first book, which Lakeside number 1 sets it up for like Pearl Lake. It's kind of just like a little like lakeside community. So Tegan's brother lives there and she decides to go visit him just to like get away from the city. And then she meets Aaron Sanders, who is like a construction worker, and he's working on her brother's like loft apartment, which is where she's living. And basically it's just about, will Aaron love her like even when she can't love herself? I liked that this showcased its relationship on like its highest highs and its lowest lows. Like I really appreciated that. Gave me a lot of It Happened One Summer vibes, but better, because you guys know I didn't love that book. Like, it's just like a nice lighthearted summer cottagey read. Quote I liked was, I love you back and I will love you twice as much on the days when you find it hard to love yourself. So sweet. The book I read was Praise by Sarah Kate, which is book number 1 in the Salacious, I don't know how to say that word, Salacious Players Club. I gave this a 4-star. It was a pretty good taboo, forbidden, sex club kind of book. Warning to emotional abuse and BDSM if that's a trigger for you. Tropes are like age gap, forbidden romance, sex club kind of thing. Basically, this is about a girl named Charlotte, and she's going to pick up a check from her ex-boyfriend at his dad's house. His name is Emerson, and he owns a happy and healthy place. It's basically a sex club, like a happy, I don't know. Yeah, basically like a safe sex club situation. Like in like every book they always say like, it's a safe sex club. Mistake, he thinks she's the new submissive, so he's like, get on your knees, and she's like, I'm here for a check. And then he hires her to be a secretary, and then you know where it goes from there. I think it's a good book to start if you want to get into age gap / like kinky stuff, because it's not super dark like a lot of them are. It just has like a sprinkle of like steam and angst and darkness. Like I said, great exploration of like submission and BDSM for newbie people. Wild roller coaster of emotions, I will say. Usually these books I find are like smut with a little bit of plot, but this had like a decent amount of plot in it, which I was like really into the love story. Kind of reminds me of Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, so if you liked that, you'll probably like this. Good side characters, good humor, overall like a fun, good read, honestly. On Kindle Unlimited, I think I said that. And one of the quotes I liked was, what people think in their heads is a them problem, don't make it yours. Next book I read was one of my most anticipated reads for this year, which is The Savage by Sophie Lark. It is number 5 in the Kingmaker series, and this was a 4.5 stars for me. Trigger warning to like drug use and recreational drugs. There's a lot of that in here, which is why I gave it 4.5 stars instead of 5. Trope is like lovers to enemies, back to lovers, and it has some FF and FFM scenes in it. Go to Sophie Lark if you're new. She does Mafia romance. She's a great place to start in Mafia. That's where I started with Mafia romance. So her first series is the Brutal Birthright series, and the first one is Brutal Prince, which is like a TikTok like famous book. And then she has the Kingmaker series, which is like a Mafia Hogwarts situation. You can actually start anywhere with her books, so you could just read this one if you wanted. They're all standalones with no cliffhangers, and she recaps anything relevant at the beginning of each book from like the previous books. However, it does make a bit more sense if you read them like back to back. At least maybe read the Kingmaker series. I've actually read all of the Brutal Birthright series and book 1 of Kingmakers, and then I read this one, which is 5. I skipped 2, 3, and 4 because I was just too excited about this one. This one follows Sabrina Gallo and Adric Petrov. This was actually a bonus book because a lot of her fans were writing in that they wanted to see these characters in their own love story, so that's what she did. And this book is a literal adventure. It felt like an action movie. You go into this blind, like it's just a good Mafia read. The like synopsis of the book doesn't really explain the book. It just says like, how do you tame a savage? Lark just knows how to write good steamy Mafia romance, to be honest. It's everything it was promised to be. Super heavy, dark, takes you into the underworld of the Russian Mafia. Drugs are a big part of the plot though, which is, like I said, why I rated it 4.5 stars and not 5. If you've read Brutal Birthright, or at least Brutal Prince, Sabrina gives me like Ada energy, like hardcore badass hero. Like I love her. Her character growth is amazing. And a lot of people did say that this book was a very toxic relationship, and I think it just comes down to your opinion. I think it's about two people trying to find their place separate from their parents, but also like trying to find it together. Two alphas trying to build their lives together while also building an empire. A lot of spicy female scenes and female male, which is what FF and FFM stand for. Very spicy. Like, damn. Sophie Lark knows how to write spice though. Like, she's amazing. And my favorite quote from this was, "Everyone thinks they want a Sabrina. The dose is the poison." Next is The Bastard's Betrayal, which is the first book in the Scandalous Scion series by Katie Robert. Y'all know I love Katie Robert, and I gave this a 4 star. I loved the premise of it. Trigger warning to kidnapping and death of a parent. Tropes were like Mafia, second chance romance, I hate everyone but you, will burn the world down to save you kind of vibes. This is a spin-off to the O'Malley series, which I didn't read, but I still understood everything that was going on. Plot summary: boy meets girl, boy betrays girl, the girl gets pissed, shoots the boy, and the boy kidnaps the girl on her wedding day. Just love this. It's more Mafia politics and violence, which is good if you don't like a lot of like the Mafia violence, which if that's why you stay away from Mafia. I don't love like the gory stuff, so this was good. A lot of epic hate sex in this book. Someone on Goodreads said it was like steamy cottagecore, and I kind of get that vibe. The one thing I will say that I just didn't love is that you don't really get to see Rose, which the main character, by the way, I don't even think I said this, I'm so sorry, is Rose and Dante. You don't get to see Rose in like her full Mafia glory. Like I wish I would have gotten to see like her interactions in the Mafia world a bit more. But nonetheless, it was amazing. I mean, y'all know I'm obsessed with Katie Robert. She is chef's kiss. Those were all the books that I read in March. A lot. This video is long, but I had a lot to say about all of them. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below what your favorite read of the month is. I would love to know, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!